Hi everybody, welcome back to Collecting Canadian Cavalry and Armour. Today we're going to get back to looking at some badges, because I know everybody out there loves the badges. So today's episode is going to cover the badges, the cap badges, of the Canadian Mounted Rifles that were part of the Canadian Expeditionary Force in the Great War. The British wanted Canadian Mounted Rifles to help them out with the campaigns in Egypt in the very beginning of the war. But as in Canada, of course, readily agreed. Sure, Canada having a wonderful history of cavalry mounted rifles with such a large expanse of territory. So by the time everything got organized and sent over, the tactical and strategic situation in the Middle East had changed. So they were decided to be used in Europe. So here we have the badges of the three regiments that made up the 1st Canadian Mounted Rifle Brigade, which is the first out of I think it's Montreal or Manitoba, the second out of BC, and the third out of I'm not sure where, but we can look it up. So nice and about collecting, you do the research. So what you can see here, guys, is the first, like I said, the 1st Brigade. Now, the second, in British Columbia Horse, okay, they actually used this badge for a while after the war as well. Now, there is an officer's version, and what we will do is we'll put a photo so you guys can see it, and we'll put a link to Chris Brooker's wonderful research that he did. It's on CanadianSoldiers.ca, but we'll put a link directly to the Canadian Mounted Rifle stuff. Well worth taking a look at this at Chris's work there. So there was no headquarters badge for the 1st Brigade, the Canadian Mounted Rifles Brigade. There was for the 2nd. We'll take a look at that one in a minute here. So guys, what we have here is the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Regiments from the Canadian Mounted Rifles. Here is a cap badge for the headquarters of the 2nd Canadian Mounted Rifles Brigade. It's a beautiful badge done in pickled brass. Now, the interesting thing about this, about the headquarters, brigade headquarters, there were only 6 officers and 27 other ranks that made it up. So these badges are a little bit harder to find. Next to it, you can see the 4th CMR and the Canadian Mounted Rifles, and then the other badge, the 4th Canadian Mounted Rifle Regiment. Both of these with the moose on from the Toronto area. After the war, and as you guys probably know, if not, we'll show you, the Ontario Mounted Rifles used the badge very, very similar with the moose on it. Very nice badge. Then, of course, you have the 5th and the 6th. You find some of these badges come in different materials. Some will be brown, some will be, pickled brass, that kind of thing. So this is the 2nd Brigade Canadian Mounted Rifles. So this General Service Cap badge was worn by the other ranks of the 7th Canadian Mounted Rifles. Now, the officers did design a badge. Very, very hard to find. The officers actually had it produced without authorization. And there are some pictures that we'll show you of the officers wearing them. Now, what had happened is because it didn't say overseas on the badge, they weren't authorized to wear it. But still looking for one, but they're very scarce, very hard to find. But anyway, then we've got the 8th, 9th, and 10th Mounted Rifles. Raised in different parts of Canada and sent over, and then used as reinforcements for some of the other brigades. I might as well, let you know now, or remind you in a way that once these guys got to England and France, they realized that they were needed as infantry more than as cavalry or mounted rifles. So they gave up their horses and filled the line as infanteers. Because mounted rifles, the doctrine anyway, said that they were basically mounted infantry. They used the horses to get to where they were going. They would dismount and then fight on the ground. So it really wasn't that far a stretch for these guys to become infantry and serve in the trenches. They didn't need their horses, so but I wanted to include them here because it's still part of Canada's mounted tradition. So you can see in this photograph, this is the officers of the 7th Mounted Rifles. Now, it's kind of hard to see because the badge kind of blends right in, but all these guys are wearing the cap badge of the 7th Mounted Rifles. And like I said, it was only the officers that had them, and they're extremely scarce, as they weren't allowed to be produced because it didn't say overseas on them. So, very cool stuff. And there is another photo out there somewhere. I tried to find it for this video, but it seems to be a little elusive. It's a group of these 7th Mounted Rifle guys. They're standing around with another fellow from Toronto who was in the 7th Mounted Rifles, but he's wearing a cap badge from the Royal Military College. That guy happened to be a guy named William Bishop, who decided he didn't like the smell of horses and horse crap and everything else and kept falling off his horse, so he decided to try the Royal Flying Corps. And he did very well for himself. You know, Billy Bishop, one of Canada's leading aces of the war and one of the most highly decorated military people that we've ever produced. So there's a little tie-in from another VC winner that started off in the cavalry. Here we have a cap badge for the 11th Canadian Mounted Rifles. Now there's two different types of this one. This is considered type 2. The other one, as you can see, is slightly different. Okay. The type 1 seems to be a little bit harder to find. At least I haven't been able to track one down. As soon as I do, I shall certainly add it to my collection. I'm going to appear to the 12th and the 13th Mounted Rifles. And at the end here, we've got the Canadian Mounted Rifles draft. Now what would happen is any new recruits that would come over and were going to be part of the Canadian Mounted Rifles would be attached to this unit. And these guys would get them all prepared and ready to be sent out among the other Canadian Mounted Rifle regiments. So very nice badges. Some of them can be a little difficult to track down. A fantastic little addition to your collection. So here was the look at the cap badges for the Canadian Mounted Rifles. Now, of course, along with the cap badges, there were collar badges and shoulder titles, the brass shoulder titles you can pick up. I've got a few laying around here, but I didn't dig them out because I don't have kind of a complete thing. But it's again, it makes a nice little addition to the cavalry portion of your collecting Canadian Cavalry and Armour stuff. You know, just like anything else, you can pick up the cap badges, the colors, you know, put everything together, nice little family tree. Looks very nice. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you found it a little bit informative, a little bit of history there. Nothing wrong with history. And again, dig into the books. Check out the link we're going to put in the description, right? And while you're down there, like and subscribe. That would probably help us out. And if you've got any comments, you know, to help make this better or anything, and maybe there's something you'd like to see, you know, just let us know. And if I have it in my collection, I'd be happy to do an episode on that. So I hope everybody enjoyed it, and happy collecting.